How to enable communication between WCF services installed as Windows services. Communication between two WCF, Windows Communication Foundation, services operating as Windows services can be a pivotal task, especially when aiming to implement a robust and scalable solution that operates efficiently under the constraints of Windows operating systems. Let's dive into setting up and enabling such communication, ensuring your services interact smoothly. Install WCF services as Windows services. First and foremost, before establishing any form of communication, you must successfully install your WCF services as Windows services. This involves creating the service application, configuring the project properties, and utilizing tools like InstallUtil.exe for service installation. Having your services running as Windows services ensures they operate independently of any user session, which is quintessential for background operations that require no user intervention. Configure endpoints for communication. Configuration is key when enabling communication between two services. WCF services communicate via endpoints, which consist of an address, binding, and contract. You need to configure these endpoints appropriately for both WCF services. Ensure that addresses are set correctly, reflecting whether services are hosted on the same machine or different machines. Utilize locational information accurately if they operate over a network. Bindings are appropriate for the communication type. Common bindings include NetTCP binding for TCP/IP communication when working within a local network, providing a blend of performance and security. Contracts match on both sides to ensure both services expect and understand the data format being exchanged. Firewall and security settings. For inter-service communication, Windows firewall settings need to be critically evaluated. Ensure that the necessary ports are open, and consider defining specific rules to allow traffic only from legitimate sources or specific IP addresses. Implement service reliability. Service reliability is of utmost importance in any communication scenario. This can include exception handling. Properly handle exceptions to avoid service crashes and ensure graceful recovery. Logging and monitoring. Implement logging mechanisms to track operations and identify issues early. Session and transaction management. Depending on the nature of the service, configure reliable sessions and transaction support for consistent states between services. Test and validate. Finally, conduct thorough testing and validation. Ensure that both services can establish a session, transmit data correctly, and meet performance expectations. Simulate different scenarios and loads to ensure robustness and capacity handling. By executing these practices, you facilitate a seamless and effective communication channel between your WCF services deployed as Windows services. This setup forms a pivotal part of developing advanced distributed applications within the Windows environment.